Welcome to Buffalo Rumblings Live. My name is Matt Warren. Right now, flying solo, and it looks like that's what's going to be happening tonight. But let's look at the Buffalo Bills game against the Denver Broncos. Some folks would say that the Bills overperformed by holding Peyton Manning without a touchdown pass and keeping the game within a touchdown. I'm not one that generally aims that low, but I understand why some fans would be saying that. So for the first time in 51 games, Peyton Manning is held without a touchdown pass by the Bills defense. And it wasn't because they were getting a ton of pressure. I don't think they were. They were certainly, I don't know, the threat of pressure. Manning was getting rid of the ball, but it was really Corey Graham and Stephon Gilmore who had great games, in my opinion. There was 3 plays that were over 30 yards against the Broncos, and even on those plays, I think it was the safety. It was definitely the safety on the long Welker that had the problem. But Gilmore and Graham played out of their minds, even though both got called for important penalties in the game. I thought that they both played really, really well. Demaryius Thomas had, I think, 2 catches for 11 yards. It was a great effort by the secondary to shut down Peyton Manning and keep the Bills in the game over and over again, like they have been for forever, pretty much all season. Then there was the offense, and Kyle Orton continues to prove that he is not the franchise quarterback that the Buffalo Bills are looking for. He set franchise records for completions in a game and passing attempts in a game, which of course wasn't the game plan going in. I thought they started with a pretty nice game plan, mixing the run and the pass, but eventually when they were behind by so many points, they just started passing all the time, and Fred Jackson was the beneficiary of a lot of snaps, a lot of pass protection, and then a lot of catches. So you guys that have him in PPR, I'm sure we're happy, but that certainly isn't what the Bills were attempting to do when they went into that game. They wanted to I'm sure having Orton in the game plan wasn't what they fully intended to do, because if they were trying to do Kyle Orton versus Peyton Manning to win the game, I think that was a mistake. And then let's get to the coaching just a little bit. Well, the special teams didn't have their greatest day either. I'll just leave it at that. Colton Schmidt, Jordan Gay, even Garrison Sanborn didn't have very good games against Denver Broncos. So let's just leave it there. As far as the coaching decisions go, I've been pretty much ranting on the 4th and 2 call since it happened. And I'm glad that Doug Marrone went for it on 4th and 6 in the first quarter. Well, glad's the wrong word. It was fine for me. I would have been okay if he had punted there. I certainly was glad that he decided to go for it, and he knew that he had to be aggressive. But what doesn't make sense to me is, why would you go for it on 4th and 6 there and on 4th and 2 later, when you really have to play perfect the rest of the game to even have a chance? And here's why I think that 4th and 2 call was so egregious, even though it was at their own 15-yard line or so with 6 minutes left. And not getting it guarantees that the Broncos are going to put the game out of reach with 6 minutes left. If you punt there, you have 2 timeouts. You're guaranteeing that if the Broncos run into the line 3 times, then they're going to take a minute and, let's see, 40 seconds is the play clock. So you say you call both of your timeouts, they're going to take at least a minute of time off the clock. So now you get the ball back with 5 minutes left, and you're either banking on getting an onside kick, or the Broncos are probably going to be able to run 40 plus 40, which is 20, and now 2 minutes off the clock if they run into the line 3 straight times. That's not a recipe for success. That means you have to. Kyle Orton has to lead 2 drives in 2 minutes each, and the Bills have to convert an onside kick. I would rather take my chances on 4th and 2 than trying to get an onside kick. And Jordan Gay pretty much proved why on his onside kick. It wasn't very good and never even got the 10 yards, and it just was a hot mess. That's just why I think that decision was so bad. And then eventually later they do convert on 4th and 16. Let's go to some of the questions that are in the comment section here at BuffaloRumblings.com. Do you feel Orton is worth keeping around for next season, even if it costs a slight increase to keep him here? Right now, Orton has a $5 million, I think it's $5 or $5.5 million. I can't really remember which one it is. Both I think were reported when he signed. He has a player's option for next year, so he can stick around if he wants to. And this is from Van Scott. Sure, we can keep Kyle Orton around for next year. I don't know how many other options are going to be out there. It looks like Brian Hoyer is going to be available. So that's neat. There's just not going to be a ton of great quarterbacks unless a guy like Cam Newton, who got into a car accident today, unless a guy like Cam Newton is going to be put on the block, or even Jay Cutler put on the block. But with Jay Cutler's contract, I don't even want to trade for him. So it's probably going to be Orton, Manuel, and then a rookie. And that rookie, of course, isn't going to be drafted in the first round. So I don't know. Jim Kelly's not walking through that door. I don't know what to tell you guys at the quarterback position. We're going to have a Dan K from Mocking the Drafts and SB Nation on early next week to chat about the quarterbacks that are coming out in the draft, and that's not going to make you feel any better. So the Bills are in a pickle right now at the quarterback position, and you're not going to want to hear it, but I still think EJ Manuel is probably the best shot going forward to have some sort of a veteran, or sorry, some sort of a up and coming franchise quarterback, at least with the guys on the roster now and who they could add in the spring. Van also says he thinks that we should build up the offensive line. Absolutely. That would be a perfect use of the 3rd, 4th, 5th round picks, things like that. They really need to go about signing some of their own free agents before they can actually test the free agency market. I don't even know if I want to mention Jerry Hughes' name on Buffalo Rumblings Live tonight, but I will. Hughes, of course, was bet against the Broncos, which is, of course, what we're supposed to be talking about right now. Hughes was benched by Pepper Johnson, allegedly, against the Denver Broncos for his 3rd unsportsmanlike conduct penalty of the year, the most of any player in the NFL so far in 2014. He was arguing with the refs over a Stephon Gilmore call, the pass interference call. It was pass interference. It was barely pass interference, but it was pass interference. And so Hughes kind of went off on the ref about that and was wrong and got flagged for it. I don't know if he's getting targeted like Boobie Dixon says he is, but he's certainly jawing with the refs more than you would like to see, and it earned him a spot on the bench this week, whether it was known or unbeknownst to Doug Marrone, who has really fallen out of favor with more and more Bills fans as this season has gone on. The last time Bills had a coach get 2 years was Mike Mularkey a couple of years ago, but they changed general managers, which makes sense. And you never know, the Bills still may change general managers here. Anyway, there we go. So let's just wrap up the Broncos game by saying this. Yes, it almost killed their playoff chances. Yes, it stunk. Yes, it was fun to watch the defense for parts of that game, or large parts of that game. And ultimately, it should give you hope for the rest of these games that it's not going to be a blowout, at least. And I don't know, it feels so hollow for me to say that, but that's how Doug Marrone approaches the game. So if we don't watch it that way, that's that's really how we're just going to be sad. So with that, I want to welcome in Evan Tex Western from Acme Packing Company. He's one of our bloggers over at the Green Bay Packers blog here at SB Nation. Tex, how are you?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That's a very red wall you have behind you. I was assuming it was going to be green or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I left my Packer shrine upstairs. There's not very good lighting up there, so
I
otherwise I'd be in front of my stock certificate otherwise.
Right, I understand. And I have one of those too, by the way. It was given to me as a gift. I did not purchase it myself. I just want to make everyone aware of that. I am still rooting for the Buffalo Bills this week, even though I think it's really neat that I have a share of Packer stock somewhere around here in one of these filing cabinets. I don't put it out because I don't want people to think I'm big time in them being an owner of the Packers and all, you know.
Yeah, we're a special breed. We're we like to think of ourselves as a little bit unique. So it's kind of fun to say, I'm the owner of an NFL team.
Right, and it. I keep getting the shareholders things, and you're like, I'm not driving to Green Bay, but anyway, the when the Bills were going through the sale process, there was a group around here called the Buffalo Fan Alliance that was trying to model themselves on the Packers stock model. Now, obviously, it's been outlawed by the NFL, but they were trying to raise money so that the new owner could either finance part of the team purchase or finance a new stadium, use it like interest-free loan and stuff like that. So they would essentially buy shares in the Buffalo Fan Alliance, and they would give a tax-free loan, or it's not tax-free, but interest-free loan to the new owner. So we were keeping an eye on Green Bay because the Bills and Packers in a lot of ways share that I don't know, that small town feeling. Speaking of small town feeling, what do you get of traveling to Buffalo on a short week after the Falcons gave you more than you thought they might on Monday Night Football?
Yeah, that was we got off to the usual great first half start that we've had these last couple of weeks at home, and by the time halftime rolls around, we're coasting, we're feeling good, and then Julio Jones decided to go bonkers on us, and that was just really unpleasant for the whole last 30 minutes or so. But
All right,
yeah,
so
I think the nice thing is that we were at least at home this weekend. So our routine was the Packers' routine was shifted back a day a little bit, but at least it's not like we're coming back from out of town, flying back home, and then practicing all week, and then having to fly back out to Buffalo again. So that'll at least help. But certainly, anytime you're on a little bit of a short week, that kind of compresses your recovery schedule, your rehab for some of the guys that are a little banged up. I think that'll definitely be a concern on Sunday.
I'm glad you mentioned Julio Jones because the Bills traded up to get this dude named Sammy Watkins in the 2014 draft. And how can he replicate the success that Julio Jones had on Monday night? What was he able to do against the Packers that Sammy Watkins might be able to, I don't know, try and steal from?
Jones's size, I think, is one of his, certainly his biggest attributes and his greatest strengths as a receiver. And the Packers have struggled at times with bigger, stronger receivers like that. Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey, to some extent, have given them some issues in the past. Calvin Johnson's always, a dangerous threat. Watkins isn't necessarily that, 6'4", 230 guy. So I think, that there's the general athleticism is where he's going to need to, to make his hay and to beat the corners early. When they're matched up in man coverage and get a couple of big plays in early and force the Packers into maybe rolling coverages over to him and then freeing up some more opportunities for some of the other receivers on the other side potentially. One of the guys that I would expect to see matched up on Watkins early and often would be Sam Shields, and he just got beaten like a drum by Julio Jones yesterday. He's a burner. He's got great speed, but I think part of his issue on Monday night was that he was coming off a concussion. He really didn't practice all week. He was only, it was only a couple hours before the game that we knew he was going to play. So I'm wondering how much that played into his ineffectiveness. And we're certainly hoping that he'll be ready to go and practicing all week this week for certainly a big matchup against Sammy.
Mm-hmm. What other weaknesses does that Green Bay Packers defense have? Oh, by the way, he said last night, and we've been talking about Monday Night Football. We're recording this on Tuesday night if you're watching it later in the week. What other weaknesses do the Green Bay Packers have on defense that the Bills might be able to exploit? Tex, if that's your real name.
Well, it's not, but I tell you, over the first half of the season, the rush defense was just abysmal. Going into the bye week after 8 games, they were allowing almost 150 yards per game on the ground. Um, so up until about 4 weeks ago, I would have said run the ball between the tackles, and attack the middle of the field. But since that bye week, they've come back and put Clay Matthews inside a lot more, especially on base downs, on running plays, and it's really cleaned up the middle of that defense and helped them defend against the run a lot better. So one of the things that you really need to do is, like I said, softening up the middle, but you've got some young defensive backs. Clinton Dix, for example, the first-round pick out of Alabama, he's played very well, and he's got good instincts and good positioning, but sometimes he's prone to a lot of missed tackles. So if you can get the ball to some playmakers in space over the middle, I think missed tackles in general has been something that have caused issues for the Packers defense all year long. And you saw it again, with Julio Jones. I keep saying his name, but he was forcing missed tackles left and right last night. It seemed like, and especially with Clinton Dix, Micah Hyde, some of these younger defensive backs. I think that's going to be an area where I expect to see Buffalo try to attack the Packers defense.
So moving to the other side of the ball, Aaron Rodgers is very good. The Bills, of course, played Peyton Manning this week and held him without a touchdown pass for the first time in 51 games. Do you see the Bills being able to repeat that feat against Aaron Rodgers and his slew of passing weapons?
Well, if you're asking me if Rodgers is not going to throw a touchdown pass, I would not take that bet. I absolutely think Rodgers will throw a touchdown or two. I think this Packers offense.
I would too. So anyway.
Yeah, I think the balance that Eddie Lacy and James Starks have brought to this offense has really given Rodgers another dimension to work with. In his MVP season in 2011, that running game was pretty much non-existent, and he was able to exploit teams that were still dropping the safety into the box, God knows why, until late in the season. Well, this year you saw last night again against Atlanta. Atlanta had 2 safeties deep the entire game, even though Lacy and Starks were gashing them for 7-8 yards a carry underneath. And so the key, and we've said this all season long, and even going back the last couple of years, the key to defending against Rodgers is you have to get pressure with your front four. If you blitz him, he's going to carve up the secondary. We looked it up last week, and before Monday's game, I think his passer rating was about 130 when teams brought the blitz, and about 105 when they didn't. So it's yeah. But
sorry.
The key is to.
You got Kyle Orton. I'm just saying.
These are some ridiculous numbers that we're getting used to here in Green Bay. And when he throws for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns, that's been an average game this year. And believe me, we realize how spoiled we are. But no, the key is to get pressure with 4, and I think the Bills' defensive line is one of the better equipped units to be able to do that. And then drop back 7 guys in coverage and take away some of those bigger windows that Rodgers likes to throw to when teams bring the blitz. The 2 teams that have really had success doing that this year are Seattle and Detroit. And again, both of those teams that have the personnel on the defensive line to get pressure with just 4 guys.
Right, and last week the Bills were able to use a little bit more press coverage with Corey Graham and Stephon Gilmore, but the defensive line wasn't able to bring down Manning or really even hit him that many times. He's just got such a quick release. Is Rodgers going to hold on to the ball a little bit more than Manning to allow, like 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds maybe for Manning? Is Rodgers going to hold on to the ball just a little bit more to try and let some of those routes develop?
Yeah, I think there's definitely the possibility that that's going to happen. I will say Rodgers' offensive line has been playing very well this season. This is the first time I think we've had 5 starters play together this late in the season in over a decade. So the continuity along that line has really been a positive thing for this team, both in the passing game and the running game. So Rodgers hasn't taken as many hits as he's gotten used to over the last couple of years. So I think if one of the best things that Rodgers does is he senses pressure as well as anyone in the league. he steps up and he's got great mobility in the pocket as well as getting out of the pocket and throwing on the run. So I think if anything, the way he's going to hold on to that ball a little bit and avoid the rush is doing it with his feet, stepping up in the pocket, shaking off would-be tacklers, and somehow finding a way to escape the pocket and extend the play with his legs. And when he does that, that's when Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb really get dangerous. Cobb is his favorite target on those stretch plays when he extends the play outside the pocket. Somehow it just seems like Cobb always finds a way to get open and find a soft spot in the defense. And so those are the two guys definitely to keep an eye on when the play breaks down.
So Dan Lavoie, one of our writers at Buffalo Rumblings, asked, you keep talking about all the good players you have. What's the weakest point of the team?
Inside linebacker. Without hesitation, the inside linebacker unit in general has been the biggest problem that this team has had for a while. And part of the reason that Clay Matthews has been moved to inside linebacker is the depth at outside linebacker and the health that we've had there. And I think that's one where Dom Capers realizes that the guys he was thrown out there, A.J. Hawk looks like he's really lost a step. He only played 8 snaps on Monday night.
Whoa.
Yeah, he's really taken a downturn the last year or so, unfortunately. You got a young guy, seventh round pick in 2013, Sam Barrington. He's probably going to start at one of the inside linebacker spots. He's good against the run, but he's really raw in coverage, so that's a weak point. And then Brad Jones and Jamari Lattimore are the backups, and they've shown a little bit of flashes here and there, but there's really no top end talent at that unit. So definitely we expect that Ted Thompson will be investing pretty heavily in terms of his draft resources at inside linebacker. There were a lot of people calling for it to happen this year. Certainly in Wisconsin, a lot of people would have loved to see Chris Borland, in green and gold this year, and certainly with the way he's been playing out in San Francisco, those complaints that he ended up elsewhere have only gotten louder. But certainly the draft picks that we've gotten this year have done a good job so far. But yeah, inside linebacker without a question. And then I guess you could throw kind of the middle of the defense in general. The safeties are better this year with Clinton Dix. He's really helped out. Micah Hyde plays a little bit of safety as well as slot corner. And then nose tackle with B.J. Raji going down preseason. Luckily, the LaTroy Guion signing has worked out, and he's been pretty solid for the most part. Not spectacular, but he's been at least a decent contributor at that nose tackle spot. But yeah, without a doubt, inside linebacker is the toughest spot on this roster right now.
Well, luckily for the Packers, I guess the Bills' guards have been just a hot friggin' mess all season. I won't even get into it. But what? We're with Evan Tex Western from AcmePackingCompany.com, SB Nation's Green Bay Packers blog. You had a post on your website today, AcmePackingCompany.com. Check it out. About the ridiculous turnover-free streak against the Packers, that the Packers have. The Bills. I want the Bills to get some turnovers. What can they do to get turnovers from that Green Bay Packers team? It helps that they're playing in Buffalo.
Certainly. Yeah, and one of the things to keep in mind with this streak is even though the Packers haven't turned the ball over in 4.5 games.
Good Lord.
A big part of that certainly is Rodgers, being as careful with the football as he is, and with his ability to be accurate with his throws, even in bad weather. He's not going to give you very many opportunities to get your hands on the passes. The thing is, the Packers have put a ball on the ground at least once in each of their last 8 games. They've just been recovering every fumble just about that they've had. So, a couple muff punts here and there. I think special teams could be an area where Buffalo could really have an advantage. The Packers special teams have not been good. They got another extra point blocked last night on Monday. There've been a couple of muff punts here and there, a couple of blocked field goals over the last couple of weeks. So, definitely focusing on chopping the balls out. Ball security is definitely going to have to be, at the forefront of the Packers' minds. And if I were Buffalo, that's where I would go. I would attack the football when it's in the Packers' hands and force them to cough it up and put it on the ground, because there's no way that that recovering the fumbles that they have at the rate that they have is going to be sustainable.
Right. Yeah, the Bills have been pretty successful. Jerry Hughes, in particular, Brandon Spikes, some of those guys at jarring the ball loose. Excuse me. Sergeant Major Thor, one of our readers, are there any key players that are hurt that you need to be worried about besides Lacey? And why don't you give us an update on Lacey as well?
Yeah, Lacey had a little bit of a hip pointer towards the end of last night's game. Personally, I was really hoping he was going to come back and score a touchdown at the end of that game for my fantasy team's sake, but that didn't work out. But no, it sounds like from what Mike McCarthy was saying that they're expecting him to be okay to go by the end of the week and practice by Saturday, and he should be available for the Packers to use on Sunday. Certainly, I think you'd see a bigger dose of James Starks in the running game, and he had a good game on Monday night as well. I think he had about 10 carries for 75 yards or so and a touchdown, so not bad as a number 2 option. Jamari Lattimore, one of the backup inside linebackers, he's also a key special teams player. He missed last week, and he might be out again for this next week. But this is the first year in as long as I can remember that the Packers are this late in the season and really have not lost any significant key players for any substantial length of time. I mentioned Shields with having his concussion last week. He was back and he played Monday night. He didn't play particularly well, but I'm hoping that with we're certainly hoping with some practice time again that he'll be able to be back into form. But yeah,
and you mentioned Raji too already, so I mean that was right. A big one.
Yeah, and Raji at least went down late in the preseason, so they had a couple weeks to figure out what they were going to do at that position before he got before the season started. So the one guy who got hurt early on as well was J.C. Treader, who was supposed to be the team's starting center. He got hurt before the last preseason week, and then the 5th round pick Corey Linsley out of Ohio State has come in and played basically at a Pro Bowl level as a rookie. Which is really impressive.
Outside of week 1, right?
What's that?
Outside of week 1, right?
Yeah, week 1 against Seattle, he struggled a little bit, but yeah, since then he's played really, really well. He's not allowing really anything in terms of pressure on the interior, and he's got some good veteran guards alongside him too. The one thing that does concern me is depth on that offensive line in general. Not only did Treader go down, and he's back now, but Don Barkley was the team's big swing tackle. He played left guard, right tackle, and he was going to be the number 1 backup on that line, and he went down with an ACL injury, I believe, and he's out for the season. So depth on the line is certainly a concern. But like I said, it's been remarkable what the defense has been able to do and what Dom Capers has been able to do with a full complement of healthy linebackers and players in his secondary. It's really these last couple of weeks been showing what he's able to do when he's got all his players at his disposal.
We've been talking with Evan Tex Western which is just an awesome name. Just let me say that, throw that out there. From Acme Packing Company, at Acme Packing Co. Right?
That's right.
On Twitter, just like we're at Buff Rumblings. We can't fit it all in the whatever how many characters it is. I just haven't bothered to count. But so Acme Packing Co. on Twitter. What else do you want to say about this matchup before we get going?
Well, I think this is the matchup that, aside from that Week 17 game against Detroit, which very likely will be the deciding game in the NFC North this year, this is the one in the last stretch of the season that Packers fans are most concerned about. Just the style of play I think that Buffalo has, the going on the road in a fairly hostile, weather, inclement weather potentially type of environment. This is not a game that I would expect the Packers to overlook, and certainly the fans are expecting that this is going to be a very tough, very hard-fought game, regardless of the result. So, I think for whatever it's worth, Bills fans, I think you can at least know that there is a healthy level of respect there for your team, and we're definitely not overlooking the Bills this week.
You might be the only fan base in the NFL, including Buffalo's. I know the Bills looked at the final 4 games of their schedule and saw Denver, Green Bay, Oakland, and then the Patriots. And 2 of those games at the opposing teams. This is the last home game for the Bills in the season over the last month, and it's brutal to face 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in 4 weeks. And
that's a murderer's row right there. Yeah.
That's not to say anything bad about Derek Carr or whatever, out in Oakland. I don't know, whoever. He might be a Hall of Famer. I don't know, but
well, we were happy to see them beat up on the 49ers this past week. So
I'm sure you were. But the Bills' playoff chances are going to go from bad to nil, or from slim to none, or whatever you want to say, if they lose to the Packers this week. Now, there's tons of Bills fans that are going around saying, look, they can get in at 9-7, but even getting in at 10-6, which they would have to win out to get to, they're beating Aaron Rodgers, they're beating Tom Brady, and they're counting on teams like the Falcons and Jaguars and Titans to win key AFC games coming down the stretch, and it's not good. So I don't know. Most Bills fans are resigned, even if they think they might even have a shot in this game. Most Bills fans are just resigned to another season without the playoffs, and so it's kind of, even if they think they have a shot, they're kind of throwing in the towel. I just wanted to quickly look up the 5-day forecast to see what was going to happen. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be pretty warm this weekend. Okay. So it's the last I saw, it was supposed to get up into the mid to high 40s.
That's balmy from what we're used to.
No kidding. And I mean, the Bills complain that sometimes that they don't get great attendance and just because this says 38, but I've seen way higher than that for where I live, about an hour east of Orchard Park. So yeah, it should not be bad weather for sure. And the snow that we're getting a snowstorm, but it's going to be tonight, Wednesday, Thursday, and it'll all be gone by the time kickoff rolls around on Sunday. So I'm looking forward to watching Rodgers. I have family members that I will disavow on Sunday that are huge Packers fans, and it's just going to be a fun game to watch. And I'm just glad I get to watch it and watch Rodgers. So thank you, Evan Tex Western. Wait, there's got to be a story about Tex. How does Tex?
Just about any time I get on a show or anything, everybody asks me what it is, and
they have
it's not really as interesting as it sounds like it's going to be. My last name is Western. A bunch of people in high school thought it would be funny to start calling me Tex, and it just kind of caught on in high school, and I carried it with me through college and ever since. So
yeah, you're right. That's a pretty terrible story.
I have been to Texas. I've never lived in Texas, but at least I have visited the state of Texas. So at least, I can say that with a straight face.
Do you live in Wisconsin?
I don't. I actually live in Ohio now. I did grow up in Wisconsin, though.
So Tex Western is from Wisconsin but lives in Ohio. So yes. There's the story. So thank you very much, Tex Western from AcmePackingCompany.com, for giving us all this insight on the Packers, and go Bills.
Thanks a lot. Go Pack, go.